They were smiling in group chats, talking about labels and contracts, celebrating how close they were to making it. Meanwhile, their follower count was quietly bleeding out in the background. 50 at a time, engagement kept dying, views kept dropping, panic was setting in, and the most beautiful part? They had no idea the person destroying their future was the same person who had built it from the ground up. If you've ever been replaced like you meant nothing, if you've ever watched someone take credit for your hard work, hit that like button and subscribe. This story isn't loud revenge, it's slow, surgical, and painfully deserved. I never chased fame. I never imagined red carpets or magazine covers. What I wanted was simple and honest. I wanted music that mattered, small stages, loud speakers, sweat dripping down your back while the crowd locks into the rhythm. That feeling where, for a few minutes, nothing else exists. So when their message landed in my inbox late one night, it felt unreal. Their bassist had just quit. They'd been together for over a year. They said they liked my style, said I had the sound they were missing. I remember staring at the screen, heart racing, already picturing rehearsals and gigs before I even replied. I said yes instantly. In the beginning, it felt like a real band. Long practices that turned into late-night conversations, joking about future albums, talking about when we blow up like it was already guaranteed. They weren't exceptional musicians, not really, but they were confident, loud, and convinced they were destined for something bigger. At the time, I believed it too. I thought we were all pushing toward the same goal, pulling equal weight. That illusion didn't last long. A few months in, the manager pulled me aside after rehearsal. He started talking about image, branding, and online growth, said talent alone wasn't enough anymore. You needed visibility, numbers, proof. Then he looked at me and said I seemed good with that stuff. Asked if I'd be willing to help manage their social media. It felt like recognition. Like they finally saw value in me beyond my instrument. I agreed without hesitation. That was the moment everything shifted. At first, it was just a few posts here and there, then it became full control. Instagram, TikTok, Reels, stories, merch designs, visual identity, logos, color palettes, captions, hashtags, analytics, trends. I wasn't just posting. I was studying, testing content at ridiculous hours, watching engagement patterns, learning what made people stop scrolling while they went home after practice. I stayed up glued to a screen, tweaking designs, responding to comments, building something from nothing. Slowly, the numbers climbed, then they jumped. Venues started reaching out to us instead of the other way around. Promoters didn't ask about sound quality or songwriting. They asked about follower counts, engagement, reach. The band started getting booked not because the music blew people away, but because the online presence made them look successful. And I knew the truth, that without me, none of this existed, but nobody said thank you. They showed up, played their parts, collected the praise, and left. I was invisible. The work I did happened behind screens, behind numbers, behind results. They took credit for it. They started acting like this growth was natural, like it was inevitable, like they deserved it just for showing up. And I let it happen because I believed in the project, because I believed in us. It didn't stop there. I started writing songs too, full ideas, lyrics, bass lines, structure. Songs that made people react during live shows, songs they still play today, songs with pieces of me in them. I told myself it was worth it. That sacrifices were normal when you were building something real. Then one night, after a gig, they destroyed that belief in less than 5 minutes. No warning, no conversation, no sit down, just a casual announcement. The old bassist wanted to come back. They said it made more sense, said it wasn't personal. I was still holding my gear, ears ringing, adrenaline not even faded yet. I remember nodding while my chest felt hollow, like all the air had been sucked out. 1 year of effort, 1 year of building their brand, their image, their opportunities. Erased, replaced, disposable. I didn't argue, I didn't beg, I didn't explode, I just walked away. But inside, something cracked. It wasn't just anger. It was the slow realization that they never saw me as a person. I wasn't a bandmate. I was a tool. Useful until I wasn't. And the funniest, most tragic part of it all? They had no idea how badly they had underestimated me. Because while they kicked me out of the band, they forgot one tiny detail. I still had everything, when I walked away. That night, I told myself I was done with the drama, done with the disrespect, done with pretending it didn't hurt. I loaded my gear into my car in silence. Every movement mechanical, like my body was working on autopilot while my mind lagged behind. I drove home with the radio off, no music. Just the sound of the road and my thoughts bouncing around uncontrollably. That's when it hit me, not all at once, but in waves. The kind that leave you staring at the ceiling at 3 a.m., replaying conversations, wondering when exactly you stopped being a bandmate and became disposable. The next few days were the worst. No messages, no check-ins, no hey, thanks for everything, just silence. And that silence spoke louder than any argument ever could. It confirmed what I didn't want to admit: they'd already moved on. They were relieved. The work I did, invisible, replaceable, or so they thought. I tried to focus on my own projects. I told myself karma would handle it, that talent eventually finds its way. But then I started noticing things, little things at first. Their posts still looked exactly the same aesthetic. Same tone, same posting schedule, same captions. Just slightly worse. Then I saw them teasing big news coming soon. Talking about meetings, labels, contracts. Suddenly it clicked. They weren't just chasing gigs anymore, they were chasing a deal. And I knew exactly how fragile that dream was. Because I'd been in those conversations, I'd read the emails. I'd seen the requirements. The label didn't care about loyalty or effort, they cared about numbers. Followers, engagement, growth, proof that a band could bring an audience with them. And the main reason those numbers existed in the first place was me. That realization didn't make me feel powerful, it made me feel sick. I remembered all the nights I stayed up tweaking designs. All the times I defended the band in comments. All the unpaid labor I poured into making them look bigger than they were. And now they were using that foundation to build a future without me. It wasn't just unfair. It felt insulting. That's when I remembered something they had completely forgotten. They never changed the passwords. I still had access to everything: Instagram, TikTok, email, analytics, all of it, sitting there waiting. For weeks I didn't touch anything, I just watched. I watched their engagement slowly dip as they tried to run things themselves. Watched them post content that missed the mark, watched comments go unanswered. Watched the algorithm lose interest. And still, I did nothing because I wasn't sure what I wanted yet. I didn't want to destroy them. I didn't want to be reckless. I still wanted to work in music. I still wanted opportunities. Burning everything down would have felt good for 5 minutes and ruined my future for years. So I sat with the anger, let it simmer, let it mature. Revenge, I realized, didn't have to be loud to be effective. Then one night, scrolling through their page, I noticed something that made my heart slow down in the best possible way. Their follower count was being used as a selling point, publicly. Boldly, they were flexing numbers that didn't belong to them. Numbers they didn't earn, numbers I built. That's when the idea formed: quiet, petty, perfect. I didn't delete posts, I didn't change bios, I didn't lock them out. I did something far more subtle. I clicked on followers, one by one, removed. No notification, no alert, no warning, just gone. The first time, I removed 10. Just to see if anything would happen. Nothing did, no alarms, no messages. No suspicion. So the next day, I removed 20, still nothing. That's when I smiled for the first time since they kicked me out. I realized I could make them think they were failing. That their content was bad, that the audience was losing interest. I could slowly rot their confidence from the inside out. No drama, no confrontation. Just numbers quietly collapsing while they scrambled for answers. And the best part? They blamed themselves. I made it a routine. Every time they posted, I waited. Let the excitement build. Let them refresh analytics. Then I removed followers. 50 at a time, not enough to be obvious, enough to hurt. Over weeks, then months. The count dropped, engagement plummeted, their comments got desperate. What do you guys want to see? Why is the algorithm like this? I watched it all unfold from the shadows. They started panicking. Meetings went quiet. Big announcements stopped. That contract they kept hinting at, never mentioned again, and through all of it, they never once suspected me. Because they never thought the person they discarded could still hold the strings. They thought they won. They were wrong. Asterisk at first. It felt almost clinical. I wasn't angry while I did it. I wasn't shaking with rage or laughing like a villain. I was calm, detached, clicking through followers the same way someone might delete old emails. There was a strange sense of balance in it. Like I was correcting a mistake the universe had. But then something changed. I started noticing patterns. Their posting time shifted. Captions got longer, more desperate. They began over-explaining themselves in stories. Asking their audience to support the journey, to engage more, to help fight the algorithm. Every one of those posts felt like a quiet confession. They didn't understand what was happening and it scared them. And that fear reached me through the screen. I told myself I should stop, that this was enough, that I'd made my point. I did in single quotes because watching them struggle awakened something raw inside me. Not joy exactly, validation, the kind you feel when someone who dismissed you finally experiences the weight you carried alone. For the first time since they kicked me out, the power dynamic had flipped. I wasn't the disposable one anymore. They were. I started paying closer attention, reading comments, watching live videos. I could hear the stress in their voices, the forced optimism. The subtle cracks when they talked about momentum and timing, they blamed the algorithm. They blamed the market, they blamed themselves, they never once considered the possibility that the foundation they were standing on was being quietly removed. The more they posted, the more methodical I became. I didn't remove followers randomly anymore, I timed it, waited until engagement peaked, then pulled the rug out. A video would start strong, likes climbing, comments rolling in. Then suddenly, numbers would stall, drop, confuse them. I imagined them refreshing screens, frowning, asking each other what they did wrong this time. That imagination fueled me, but it wasn't just about revenge anymore, it became personal. I remembered moments I'd ignored before, the jokes at my expense, the way they brushed off my ideas until someone else repeated them. The night they took credit for a design I spent hours perfecting, each memory sharpened my resolve. This wasn't cruelty, this was accountability. Still, guilt crept in when I least expected it. Late at night, quiet moments when the adrenaline wore off, I'd ask myself if I was becoming the villain in my own story, if this crossed a line. But then I'd remember how easily they erased me, how they didn't even have the decency to sit down and talk. And the guilt would harden into something colder. They started fighting publicly, subtle at first. Passive-aggressive comments, stories clearly aimed at each other. One of them posted a rant about fake support and people who don't believe. Another posted about trust and loyalty. I knew those posts weren't about fans. They were about each other. Pressure does that. It exposes cracks you didn't know were there. Their follower count dropped below a threshold that mattered. I knew because I'd seen the contract requirements. That number wasn't arbitrary, it was a gate. And they fell below it quietly, without realizing it was permanent, even if growth returned. The momentum was gone. Labels don't wait, they move on. That's when I felt something unexpected. Relief. Not because they were failing, but because I finally felt seen. Even if they didn't know it was me, the universe had corrected itself through my hands. They built their dreams on my labor, then treated me like an afterthought. Now those dreams were crumbling and I didn't have to raise my voice once. I watched them announce a short break, a rebrand, a reset, code words for panic. They promised big changes, but I knew better. Without me, they were improvising, guessing. And it showed. Their content felt hollow, their confidence forced. The magic was gone because the person creating it was gone too. I stopped removing followers every day, not because I felt bad, but because I didn't need to anymore. The damage was done. The system I'd built was gone, and they didn't know how to rebuild it. They thought success was automatic. They never learned the work behind it. Sometimes I wonder if they still talk about me, if they've convinced themselves I was the problem. People like that always rewrite history to protect their ego, but it doesn't matter. Because while they're stuck wondering what went wrong, I know exactly what did. They underestimated the wrong person. Asterisk, by the time they realized something was truly wrong, it was already too late. What started as confusion had turned into quiet panic. Their posts weren't just underperforming anymore, they were failing outright. Videos that should have done well died within hours. Stories barely reached anyone. Even their most loyal fans started asking uncomfortable questions in the comments. Why don't you guys show up on my feed anymore? Did something change? Are you shadow banned? Every question felt like a tiny crack spreading through the illusion they were desperately trying to hold together. Behind the scenes, I knew those cracks were widening fast. They were trying everything, posting more frequently, posting less, switching styles, copying trends, repeating old formats that used to work. Watching them scramble was surreal. Like seeing someone frantically rearrange furniture in a house with a collapsing foundation. They kept adjusting the surface, never realizing the structure itself was gone. And the structure had always been me. There were moments when I almost got caught. Times when one of them mentioned password security in a story, a casual joke about locking things down. My heart would pound for a second, fingers hovering over the screen, wondering if this was the end, but nothing happened. They changed nothing. Because deep down, they still didn't think I mattered enough to be a threat. That arrogance was their downfall. They announced another meeting with industry people. I knew that language. I'd heard it before. It was the same vague optimism they used whenever they wanted to sound important, but the tone was different now, less confident, more defensive, like they were trying to convince themselves as much as their audience. The follower count dipped just below a psychological barrier that night, one of those clean, round numbers bands obsess over. I remember staring at it, feeling a strange calm settle in. This wasn't rage anymore, this was closure. Soon after, the post slowed down. Days passed, then weeks, when they finally returned. It was with a long caption about taking time to reflect, about creative burnout, about resetting expectations. People commented with support, hearts, encouragement. I read every word, not with bitterness, but with understanding. Because burnout feels different when you're carrying the weight yourself. Instead of standing on someone else's shoulders, I thought about stopping completely, walking away, letting whatever happened next be natural. But then I remembered the night they kicked me out, how fast it was, how little they cared, how easily they erased me, and I realized something important. This wasn't cruelty. This was symmetry. The pain they caused me didn't explode, it lingered. So their consequences wouldn't explode either. They would linger too. They never accused me directly, but I could tell suspicion was creeping in, subtle changes. A sudden drop in behind-the-scenes posts, less transparency. One of them unfollowed a bunch of people randomly, probably hoping it would reset something. Another started pushing his personal account harder, like he was preparing an escape plan. Bands don't fall apart all at once, they rot slowly from the inside. Meanwhile, my life moved forward. I joined other projects, smaller, quieter, healthier. People who actually listened, who valued contribution, who said thank you. Every time I opened my phone and saw those messages, it contrasted sharply with what I'd been through. It confirmed something I desperately needed to believe. I wasn't the problem, I never was. One night, scrolling through their page, I noticed something heartbreaking and ironic. They changed their bio, new tagline, new energy, same visuals, same style, my style. They were still trying to imitate the version of themselves that existed when I was there. But imitation without understanding is empty, and audiences can feel that. I removed a few more followers that night, not out of anger, out of habit. Then I stopped completely. I didn't need to do anything else. The machine I built was gone. And they never learned how to rebuild it. That was the real revenge, not the loss of followers, not the failed contract, but the realization they'd never say out loud, that the success they thought was theirs never truly was. The last time they posted together, it felt forced, smiles that didn't reach the eyes, energy that felt borrowed. The comments were polite but distant. People move on quickly when momentum dies. That's the harsh truth about attention, and they were learning it the hard way. I closed the app and sat back, feeling something I hadn't felt in a long time. Time has a strange way of softening things. Not erasing them, not forgiving them. Just dulling the sharp edges until you can finally breathe again. Months passed after I stopped touching their accounts. I didn't check daily anymore. Sometimes weeks went by without me even thinking about them. That, more than anything, told me the revenge had done its job. Because the goal was never to destroy my life along with theirs. The goal was to take back the power they stole and walk away whole. One evening, out of pure curiosity, I looked them up again. The page was still there, barely alive. The follower count had stabilized, but it was a shadow of what it once was. Engagement was weak, comments were sparse, the excitement was gone. The energy that once made people stop scrolling simply wasn't there anymore. They hadn't announced a breakup, but they hadn't announced anything at all. Silence had replaced ambition. That's when it finally hit me. They never lost because I deleted followers. They lost because they never understood what built their success in the first place. They thought it was talent alone, or luck, or timing. They thought replacing me was easy because they never saw the work behind the scenes, the late nights, the unpaid labor, the creativity, the strategy, the care. When you treat people like tools, you never bother learning how they actually function. I thought back to the night they kicked me out, how small they made me feel, how replaceable. How quickly they moved on without a second thought, and standing there now, looking at the ruins of what could have been, I realized something deeply satisfying. They didn't just lose a band member. They lost the one person who believed in them enough to carry them when they couldn't carry themselves. And I didn't need an apology to feel at peace. I never confronted them, never exposed anything publicly, never bragged. They'll probably go on believing the algorithm betrayed them, that the industry is unfair, that timing wasn't right, and that's fine. Some lessons only stick when no one explains them to you. When you're forced to sit in the consequences and wonder where it all went wrong. As for me, I moved on, not upward in some dramatic, viral way, but forward, into projects where my work was seen, where effort was shared, where respect was mutual, and every time someone thanks me now, genuinely, I feel a quiet sense of victory. Because respect is something you don't notice until it's taken away. Do I regret what I did? No, because regret implies I acted out of cruelty. I didn't. I acted out of balance. I didn't destroy what they had. I simply stopped holding it up for them. Gravity did the rest. Revenge doesn't always look like fire and explosions. Sometimes it looks like silence, like numbers slowly dropping, like dreams quietly slipping out of reach, while the people responsible search everywhere except the mirror. And sometimes the most satisfying part isn't watching them fall. It's realizing you no longer care if they do. They forgot one thing. When they kicked me out, I was never just the bassist. Asterisk people will take credit for your work as long as you let them. But the moment you step away, the truth reveals itself. Success built on someone else's back never survives without them. Asterisk if this story made you feel something, hit that like button. Subscribe for more real, emotionally charged revenge stories. Just like this. And tell me in the comments, have you ever watched someone fail because they underestimated you? I'll see you in the next one.